What happens when a single rumor crashes entire social media platforms? That's exactly what's unfolding as the whispers about Tupac being alive in Cuba explode into trending hashtags like Tupac Alive, Diddy Exposed, and Jay Z Secrets. These aren't fringe discussions tucked away in obscure forums. They're dominating TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram feeds. Overnight, Tupac transformed from a memory into a digital hurricane, sending shockwaves through the very culture he once shaped. And here's the wild part: the digital noise itself is becoming evidence of something deeper. The sheer volume of chatter reveals more than curiosity. It exposes a coordinated push, insiders dropping cryptic hints, anonymous accounts sharing leaked documents, and fans turning every shred of information into viral fuel.
That's why I wanted to die at that point. Because I was like, I'm tired. But I lived and I was like, well, I can't check out.
Social platforms struggle to control it, but the more they suppress, the louder the conspiracy echoes back. What was once a cult theory has now reached the level of cultural wildfire. Belief moves mountains online. If you're watching carefully, this isn't just entertainment. It's a test case for how digital narratives rewrite history in real time. Social momentum has power, shaping opinions faster than official statements can counter. The takeaway? Pay attention to how coordinated digital chatter operates. Today it's Tupac. Tomorrow it could be politics, finance, or global security. Train yourself to track patterns in viral movements because they often reveal who's pulling the strings behind the curtain. Here's a fact many overlook. Tupac's aunt, Assata Shakur, has been living in Cuba since 1984 after escaping a U.S. prison sentence. She wasn't just anyone. Assata was a leader in the Black Liberation Army and a key figure in the Black Panthers. To Fidel Castro, granting her asylum was more than generosity. It was a political statement, a defiant gesture against Washington. If Cuba would protect Assata for decades, would it really be unthinkable they'd shelter her nephew? This connection matters because it makes the Cuba theory less about myth and more about precedent. Castro openly harbored American dissidents, revolutionaries, and fugitives as part of his foreign policy strategy. To the Cuban government, shielding someone like Tupac wouldn't be about hiding a rapper. It would be about thumbing their nose at U.S. authorities while gaining cultural and symbolic capital. History invites possibility. For anyone digging deeper, the lesson is simple. Conspiracy theories gain weight when there's historical context backing them. Instead of dismissing rumors outright, investigate whether past behavior makes current claims plausible. In this case, Assata's exile forms a foundation that transforms what if into maybe. The actionable step? When exploring any controversial claim, trace the political and family ties first. They often unlock the hidden logic behind stories that seem far-fetched at first glance. Picture this: a superstar gets shot, rushed to the hospital, and then disappears from public view forever. That's the 1996 Tupac narrative, but the details don't line up neatly. No photos of his body emerged, only hospital staff and his mother claimed to have seen him. The coroner's report listed a height that didn't match Tupac's known measurements. Even stranger, the funeral worker said to have handled his cremation vanished immediately afterward, leaving no trace. These gaps are why skeptics refuse to close the book. The problem with the official version isn't just what's there, it's what's missing. Inconsistencies pile up like unsolved riddles. Why were records sealed? Why did credible eyewitness testimony vanish into silence? To conspiracy analysts, these gaps are like flashing neon signs pointing toward a cover-up.
But I couldn't kill myself. I just wanted somebody to kill me for me.
The logic is straightforward. If a story has too many holes, people will fill them with their own answers. Gaps breed stories. The practical takeaway here is bigger than hip-hop. In any situation, whether it's a corporate scandal, a political crisis, or a personal dispute, when the official account leaves too many loose ends, people will create alternate narratives. To protect truth, clarity is key. The advice: always demand transparency, consistency, and corroboration. Because when people feel information is withheld, suspicion grows and rumors become stronger than facts. If anyone could silence the rumors, it would be Suge Knight, the man literally sitting beside Tupac the night of the shooting. Yet Suge has never fully closed the case. From prison interviews to late-night television clips, he drops cryptic comments that ignite more fire than they put out. His most haunting line? "With Pac you never know." Coming from the man who shared the last ride, those words feel less like doubt and more like an intentional spark. Suge's memories don't paint the picture of a dying man. He recalls Tupac joking, laughing, and alert even after being shot. He's described the hospital scenes with a tone that feels strangely detached from finality, almost as if he doesn't believe the end truly came. And when pressed, Suge doesn't shut the door. Instead, he pushes it wide open, leaving fans to believe there's something more. Insiders seed doubt. What do we take from this? Insider accounts are powerful, but they're double-edged. They can clarify truths or muddy the waters with half statements. The key is to never accept a single insider narrative at face value. Corroboration is everything. The actionable step here, when someone close to the center of power drops a cryptic line, treat it as a clue, not a conclusion. Verify it, compare it, and always look for patterns across multiple testimonies. That's how truth gets uncovered. The official story says Tupac died in but then came the Don Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory, an album recorded under the alias Machiavelli. The timing was eerie, it dropped just weeks after his supposed death. Even stranger, the album cover featured Tupac on a cross, suggesting resurrection. Fans noticed the name Machiavelli closely mirrors Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker who wrote about faking one's death as a strategy of power. Coincidence? Or Tupac leaving breadcrumbs? Add to that the lyrics. The songs drip with foreshadowing, lines about betrayal, death, and coming back. Some verses feel like Tupac was predicting his own disappearance, or worse, narrating it as part of a grand design. Critics dismiss this as artistic expression, but die-hard fans argue it's too pointed to ignore. When art mirrors life with such precision, it doesn't just entertain, it provokes suspicion. Patterns rarely feel accidental. Here's the lesson: cultural artifacts often double as coded messages. Whether in politics, music, or business branding, leaders embed their true intent in art and narrative. The actionable takeaway? When analyzing big events, don't just study official statements, study the symbolic language surrounding them. Sometimes the most important clues hide in plain sight, delivered through lyrics, visuals, or carefully chosen names. Treat every piece of art tied to a movement as a potential map of what really happened. Follow the money. That's the simplest way to cut through mystery. Tupac wasn't just an artist. He was a multi-million-dollar brand tied to labels, producers, managers, and corporations. His death created massive profits for record companies while simultaneously locking his image in eternal marketability. Dead artists don't renegotiate contracts. Dead artists don't demand creative control. A silenced Tupac became an asset, one that could be monetized endlessly without resistance. Business thrives on silence. Now consider the alternative. If Tupac faked his death, who stood to gain? Escaping contracts, freeing himself from the grip of death row records, and sidestepping escalating gang violence would give him something priceless: autonomy. In this light, both outcomes, death or disappearance, point toward financial motivations. Either he was eliminated to secure profits for others, or he engineered his exit to reclaim control. In either case, money is the invisible hand shaping the narrative. Follow incentives. The broader insight? Whenever a public figure's fate seems clouded in mystery, check the financial ledger. Who benefits? Who loses? And who suddenly controls the narrative? This approach works beyond hip-hop and politics, business, even local scandals. The practical step is simple. Don't just listen to words, track the flow of wealth. It's often the clearest path to truth. History shows us something chilling. When revolutionary voices rise too high, they often fall suddenly. From Malcolm X to Martin Luther King Jr., outspoken black leaders have consistently been silenced when their influence threatened the status quo. Tupac wasn't just a rapper, he was a poet, activist, and the son of Black Panthers. His music blended entertainment with sharp critiques of systemic oppression. To many, that made him more than a star, it made him dangerous. The FBI and CIA already had eyes on the Black Panther movement. Documents reveal years of surveillance, infiltration, and discrediting campaigns. If Tupac inherited that legacy, it's not hard to imagine he too was being tracked. Some conspiracy researchers believe his shooting wasn't random violence but a carefully orchestrated hit, the removal of a voice too powerful, too influential, and too uncontrollable for the system. Silence has always been a weapon. The lesson here: whenever major figures vanish under suspicious circumstances, look at their alignment with historical patterns of suppression. Power structures repeat tactics, often with minor updates, but the same goal: control. The actionable step is to compare new mysteries with old playbooks. Ask who else in history was silenced the same way and why. That lens sharpens your ability to see beyond surface explanations. Why do the stories from that night never match? Witnesses reported different numbers of shooters, varying car descriptions and conflicting timelines. Some claimed Tupac was standing at the scene, others swore he was slumped immediately. Even the Las Vegas police admitted gaps in their investigation, like missing surveillance footage from the very hotel where the altercation started. When accounts don't align, the truth gets buried. Contradictions kill clarity. Fans dig deeper, uncovering oddities. Why did it take so long for an ambulance to arrive? Why wasn't Suge Knight more injured if he sat inches from Tupac when bullets tore through the car? And why have so few credible witnesses come forward publicly since? Every unanswered question layers suspicion over the official report, making it less a statement of fact and more a fragile script riddled with edits. People distrust silence. The takeaway, when analyzing any event, always line up witness accounts side by side. Gaps and inconsistencies often highlight where the truth was altered or erased. The practical advice: don't just accept the final report. Gather multiple perspectives, map them, and let the contradictions reveal where deeper digging is needed. In any mystery, what people don't agree on often tells you more than what they do. What if Tupac's greatest trick wasn't music but immortality? Not physical immortality, but the kind that lives in culture. By disappearing at the peak of his fame, he became more than a man, he became a myth. A living Tupac might have aged, changed styles, or lost relevance, but a vanished Tupac remains frozen in perfection, a forever young symbol of rebellion, artistry, and resistance. Legends don't fade. Think about Elvis sightings, Jim Morrison rumors, or the whispers around Kurt Cobain. When an icon dies suddenly, especially under strange circumstances, the myth machine activates. Tupac's case is unique only because the evidence gaps are so large, leaving even more room for imagination. Each sighting in Cuba or blurry photo online doesn't need to be true to matter. What matters is that people want them to be true. Hope creates reality. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Myths often outlive facts. For activists, creators, or leaders, the way you exit the stage can define your legacy more than the work itself. The actionable takeaway: study how narratives are shaped by timing, tragedy, and mystery. Sometimes controlling the end of a story is the ultimate act of influence. At the heart of it all, this isn't just about Tupac. It's about the millions of fans who refuse to let him go. Every candlelit vigil, mural, or social media post keeps the story alive. The obsession isn't fueled only by clues or evidence, it's driven by emotion. Tupac represented struggle, resilience, and truth-telling for communities that rarely had a voice in mainstream culture. Losing him feels like losing hope. Emotion fuels belief. That's why the theories keep breathing. Fans want Tupac to be alive because it softens the pain of his loss. Believing he escaped, that he's safe in Cuba, or that he'll one day return isn't just fantasy, it's comfort. For many, the myth is more healing than the reality of gun violence and systemic neglect. In that sense, conspiracy becomes therapy, a way to cope with collective grief. Hope becomes survival. The broader takeaway: never underestimate the emotional power of belief. In any narrative, whether political, cultural, or personal, facts may shape the story, but feelings sustain it. The practical step when analyzing why people cling to certain versions of truth: always factor in emotional needs. Sometimes the persistence of a theory says less about evidence and more about the human need for meaning. Imagine knowing there are hundreds of unreleased Tupac tracks locked away. Death Row Records and other insiders admit the vault exists, songs, verses, and collaborations the world has never heard. Some have leaked over the years, but most remain hidden. Why hold back so much art from one of the most prolific artists ever? For many, this feels like proof he's still feeding the vault from somewhere in the shadows. Music doesn't die. Every time a new Tupac verse surfaces, fans question the timeline. Were these all recorded before 1996, or is someone actively recording him now? Technology makes manipulation possible, sure, but not everything sounds patched together. Some songs have references that feel eerily modern, fueling speculation he's still behind the pen. It's a puzzle that refuses to close. Here's the lesson: content can outlive creators, but it can also mask manipulation. In media, politics, or business, whenever new work emerges from someone long gone, question who controls it and why it's being released at that moment. The takeaway: always analyze the timing and context of releases. They often reveal more than the content itself. For decades, one thing has remained consistent: the silence of key players. Hospital staff have avoided public interviews. Investigators have given vague statements. Even Tupac's closest friends and collaborators rarely speak with finality about his death. In the world of conspiracy, silence is rarely neutral. It signals pressure. Silence is a language. That quiet has fueled louder theories. If the truth was straightforward, why would so many insiders dodge it? Why has no airtight, universally accepted account ever surfaced? When words are missing, people turn to speculation to fill the gaps. The less people say, the more others believe they're hiding something monumental. Perception replaces proof. The practical takeaway: pay as much attention to what isn't said as what is. In leadership, media, and personal relationships, silence can signal fear, guilt, or strategy. The step forward is to train yourself to interpret absence as data. Sometimes the loudest truths are hidden in the quietest places. Here's a radical thought. What if Tupac is both dead and alive? Physically gone but culturally resurrected so powerfully that the myth has become a second life. In this framing, Tupac didn't need to survive in Cuba. His voice, image, and influence are so strong they've essentially made him immortal. In other words, the conspiracy isn't about a body, it's about a legacy. Legends never leave. This perspective changes everything. Instead of chasing blurry sightings or combing over contradictions, the focus shifts to what Tupac still inspires. Entire generations of artists, activists, and fans live by his words, carry his image, and spread his influence as if he never left. In that sense, the myth is reality because its impact is real. Belief becomes truth. The takeaway here is liberating. Some figures transcend mortality through the stories we tell about them. The actionable step: recognize when a narrative has evolved past facts and into culture. That's when myths stop being speculation and start becoming movements. Step back, and the Tupac mystery becomes more than hip-hop folklore. It's a study in how stories are built, how power hides or reveals truths, and how communities cling to legends for survival. Whether he escaped to Cuba, was silenced by the system, or became immortal through myth, the point isn't just about what happened, it's about why millions of people care so fiercely. Tupac's story is our mirror. Look at the ingredients, contradictions, insider comments, political history, hidden finances, and emotional need. Mix them together and you get the perfect recipe for a never-ending conspiracy. It's not random, it's structural. This is how narratives of mystery form, spread, and endure. Once a story becomes cultural fuel, it can never truly die. Stories outlive facts. Here's the final lesson. Every major mystery teaches us how power, media, and people interact. The practical takeaway? Whenever you encounter a story that refuses to fade, don't just chase the answer, study the ecosystem that keeps it alive. That's where the real truth often hides. Every rumor about Tupac doesn't just spread, it multiplies. Social media algorithms thrive on mystery, controversy, and emotional engagement, pushing conspiracy threads into millions of feeds. Platforms like TikTok and YouTube don't care whether a video is true. They care whether it's clickable. That means a grain of doubt becomes a digital avalanche. Algorithms feed chaos. When someone posts a supposed sighting in Cuba or a breakdown of contradictory evidence, the system rewards it with more visibility. This feedback loop is why Tupac conspiracies never fade. The internet has become the perfect incubator for half-truths, speculation, and myth-making. It's not about intent anymore, it's about engagement. The machine doesn't distinguish between history and hoax. Here's the actionable insight. Whenever you're analyzing a mystery, factor in media mechanics. Ask yourself, would this theory exist at this scale without amplification? Understanding how platforms reward controversy helps you cut through noise and evaluate whether a narrative is genuine momentum or algorithmic manipulation. Few theories stir fans like the Cuba connection. Over the years, blurry photos, grainy videos, and shaky eyewitness claims have surfaced, each insisting Tupac is alive and thriving in Havana. Some clips show a man with Tupac's build walking through narrow Cuban streets, while others depict someone with his exact tattoos at beachside gatherings. These fragments don't prove anything, but they keep the fire burning. Sightings spark obsession. The Cuban government, unsurprisingly, stays silent. No confirmations, no denials. For some, that silence itself feels like validation. After all, if Assata Shakur has lived there openly for decades, why couldn't Tupac blend into a quieter life away from the spotlight? Add in Cuba's history of defying the US, and the idea seems almost logical. Silence invites interpretation. The lesson here is simple. Humans crave visual proof, even when it's unreliable. The actionable step? Train yourself to evaluate imagery critically. Check sources, verify dates, compare details. Don't let low-quality visuals hijack your reasoning. In an era where deepfakes are rising, skepticism is survival. Here's the wildest scenario. What if Tupac orchestrated his own disappearance from start to finish? Think about it. The Machiavelli alias, the cryptic lyrics, the timing of the album, the contradictions in medical reports. What if none of this was random? What if it was a blueprint? Legends script their exits. If true, Tupac would have staged one of the greatest disappearing acts in modern history. He would have outsmarted rivals, escaped dangerous contracts, and freed himself from the cycle of violence surrounding him. More than survival, it would have been reinvention, transforming from artist to myth by choice. And if that's the case, then maybe we've all been living in his performance for nearly 3 decades. The audience never left. The practical takeaway? Sometimes the most unbelievable theory is the one that makes sense when you follow motive, preparation, and execution. The step forward is to always ask who benefits most from the outcome, because often that's where the truth hides. Whether alive in Cuba, silenced by power, or immortal through myth, Tupac's story leaves a trail of lessons. It's about questioning official narratives, recognizing the power of myth, and understanding how culture reshapes reality. Beyond the conspiracy, his life reminds us of the fragile line between truth and legend. Tupac is both man and movement. Fans don't keep this alive just for entertainment. They do it because Tupac spoke to their struggles, their hopes, and their fears. He represented resilience in a system stacked against the marginalized. That's why his absence, real or imagined, hurts so deeply. The mystery keeps him alive, but so does the love. Memory becomes resistance. The takeaway is timeless. Truth and myth are often inseparable, and what matters most is the impact left behind. The practical step: focus less on whether Tupac is alive and more on what his story teaches about resilience, legacy, and power, because in many ways, Tupac already achieved immortality. Tupac's fate may never be proven. For some, that's frustrating. For others, it's the point. The uncertainty keeps him alive in ways a clear answer never could. Whether hidden in Cuba, silenced by forces larger than him, or reborn through myth, Tupac became more than a man. He became a lens through which we see culture, power, and ourselves. Mystery fuels meaning. From the contradictions of eyewitnesses to the silence of insiders, from the power of media amplification to the emotional grip of fans, the Tupac saga is more than a conspiracy. It's a case study in how stories shape our world. The lesson isn't just about a rapper, it's about how narratives outlive facts and how belief becomes a force of its own. So here's the truth: Tupac lives on, maybe not in flesh, but in myth, influence, and cultural impact, and perhaps that's the most powerful form of life anyone can achieve. Legends never die.